Theme number one, protecting your energy. Most people who watch my channel would consider themselves highly sensitive, empathic, able to feel in their own physical body other people's energy states, other people's emotions. You sometimes mistake as your own. And you may have noticed that within this, there are varying degrees of sensitivity. And sometimes, especially during, potent astrological times like full moons, new moons, eclipses especially, your already empathic demeanor is far increased. So you might feel extra sensitive. And this can be this can pose some challenges in your daily life because it can make you not really want to be around people. And in our lives, we sometimes don't have a choice in doing so. Even people we love, family, friends, co-workers, people you like and sort of appreciate, sometimes you just need your own space. You just want to be in your own energy because it gets kind of confusing. You start taking on and picking up in a sponge-like way other people's energy. And I know for me, when this happens, it causes me to feel kind of alone. It makes me feel like, lonely. That was the best way to put it. But you know what? In the past, I used to look at these times as like a problem, like, oh, here it comes again. But now I find there are times in my life when it's beneficial to go into myself, to protect my energy. I also believe that as we continue to evolve and expand our consciousness and further and deepen our awakening, raising our vibration, it's one of the side effects is becoming more sensitive. But I look at that sensitivity as awareness to information you previously may not have known was there. And now you do, and now you can make wiser choices. Also, that same sensitivity allows you to peer more deeply into yourself. A lot of us, you, me, we are like this great mystery. And there's no telling what you can eventually discover about yourself. And these lonely, kind of hypersensitive times are a fantastic opportunity to really look within yourself, to see maybe see something you've never seen before. I've gone through a lot of different identity changes and shifts along my awakening, and every single one of them has surprised me. And every single one of them, once newly discovered, was a very much appreciated sort of aspect of my journey. So my friend, what I'm saying is if you are feeling what I'm explaining here, if you're feeling more sensitive to other people's energy, even energy in general, you might find it more difficult to go to the grocery store or the mall, busy places. Me and my friend Aaron, we just flew. We're in Sedona right now. We just flew on an airplane. You're crammed around lots of sort of people, and it's not ideal, obviously, for the empath. But when I'm feeling this way, I kind of go into my own little world. I can choose, and so can you. In the beginning, it's kind of hard. But eventually, I promise you, you develop this ability to sort of go into your own little bubble. If I just sat on the plane and read a book the whole time, basically just ignoring everybody. I didn't eat, I fasted, I was just in my own little world. I just ignore the people. Ignore the denser energy, which airports are very dense. It's really a good example of being like a worst case scenario for an empathic person. But I don't complain anymore. I honor it when I'm feeling hypersensitive. And again, I take full advantage. I spend more time alone, journaling, thinking, contemplating, just being. And from this sort of place that feels good and nurturing in itself because of all the things I just said, often there are these really cool discoveries about myself, new things I can explore, new things about myself I didn't know. And my invitation to you is to not look at it as a bad thing or something to endure and wait out until it goes back to normal, because there's a lot of opportunity in this situation, my friend. Right now is also a fantastic time to break free of attachments. We all have vices. Most of us, plural, vices. And we all know what they are for the most part. And we all know, deep down anyway, we'd be better off without them. And even though certain things may have served you for a time, life is not static. We are constantly in these like different phases and seasons of our life. And whilst a tool maybe has been a great assistance to you and a great aid and a catalyst to growth and expansion, it might eventually, that same very tool might become a crutch, might become something that weighs you down. For me, a long time ago, it was marijuana. I used to love smoking marijuana. I started at a very young age. And even though I have some, I would say, regrets about it, it definitely led me to some other problems, maybe not directly. But I even was able to appreciate at a very young age what marijuana was doing for me on many levels. It was helping me question authority. It was finally showing me like the option to think outside of the box. And it helped me sort of rebel against this path. In fact, I'm a big fan of The Doors. Jim Morrison said one time about high school. He said you can learn a lot of good stuff in high school, but eventually, as he got older, he felt like he was being kind of led down this narrowing path, is the way he put it. And that's exactly what I sort of picked up on in high school as well, as I was smoking ganja, because I became aware of like the system. I became aware of the pattern ingrained societal norms and trains of thought. And I became aware that the true authentic me did not agree with them whatsoever. And it allowed me to see there are other options. So anyway, among other things, it helped me. I'm not going to go on all these like benefits of marijuana, but that it helped me in many, many ways. It helped me be a father, I would say. Like when I had my young kids earlier on, it's hard. You young parents know it's difficult when you have young kids and crying babies and diapers that need cleaning. It's kind of a stressful time for a parent, especially if you're having to work hard. And I was building a business at the time. And I found that smoking a little ganja put me in this wonderful mood where I was no longer irritable, and I had fun playing with the kids and playing with the toys and the little kid things. All of a sudden, were very interesting and rewarding to me, and it allowed me to have many, many positive interactions with my children. But eventually, there came a time when I could see that same tool, that same catalyst was becoming a crutch. It was becoming a habit. I was doing it just to do it. I was doing it just because I had conditioned myself to always do it. And I would watch myself smoke and then feel worse. Like I would have maybe intentions to do something or plans or things I want to work on, and I would smoke and those plans would get derailed in exchange for Netflix and doing nothing and eating junk food and things like that. And every time I was like, why are you doing this to yourself, Vic? And I would think I should quit this. And then the next day would come around, and because there's such a momentum with conditioning, it would happen again. But what I'm trying to tell you right now, long story short, is this energy is very supportive of breaking free of attachments like that. Maybe it's not marijuana. For me currently, my friend Aaron and I, we've been kicking, you could say, this like Hape spray. Hape is like a tobacco snuff that people use in in Costa Rica and South America and things like that. So it's a plant medicine in a way, non-psychoactive. But we have this spray you can get at like the local like biohacking store in Austin. And we just do it all the time. It's no big deal. You know, we feel good. It feels nice. It's not psychoactive or anything. But we've been sort of discovering recently that we're sort of addicted to it. Like it's like we become almost accidentally dependent on this like tobacco product. And we've been like getting away from that. And consequently, we've not been sleeping well. We've been going through this sort of little mini withdrawal period, I must say. But being someone who can say is a self-proclaimed expert at kicking stuff, I kicked heroin, I kicked smoking cigarettes, I've kicked many bad marijuana, many habits I've overcome. And I'm proud to say that. And here's one of the things that I've learned. And it's happened every single time I've done something like that. Even cleaning up my diet is another example. It is challenging because you are like going against the grain of what feels normal to you. Even if it's not working for you, there's a sense of this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what's normal. And anytime we go against that, it feels uncomfortable. We're in the unknown, and it's almost like we're willingly going in the direction of suffering temporarily. But with that is this sort of elevation feeling of self-empowerment and this sort of expansion due to what I would suggest might be like like all of a sudden you can tap into more of your own genuine life force, and there's no price to pay. There's no low, there's no attachment there. It's just you. More of your genuine energy finally comes back online. I noticed that especially when I stopped smoking marijuana. I had tons of energy, tons of motivation, way more dopamine to sort of be put into my various projects. And I gained a lot of joy in having more energy and enthusiasm to do the things that really meant something to me. And if you have something like that, which if you're honest, you probably do, everybody does. For you, it might be your phone. There's a lot of socially acceptable, fairly debilitating vices, and the phone is one of them. I was on the plane just yesterday watching most people, almost everybody around me was literally like a zombie on their phone the entire flight. And I'm not above it, but I was reading at the time, but I have that too sometimes. But I can acknowledge that, I can admit that, and therefore only when I can admit that can I start working on it, which I do. I have something, I lock it up at night sometimes, I have these different things I do. But it's very important, if you relate with this at all, to become very, very honest about yourself. Be very, very honest about the motives, your true motives for doing certain things. And if you can recognize they're not authentic, they're not really in your best interest, then with that brutal honesty, then you have freedom. Freedom to make new choices. And this energy will support you big time. And even though most people would view this full moon and being in Sagittarius, the Vedic astrologer folks out there will know it's in Scorpio. And true to that, I would say, this full moon is also a fantastic time to have more awareness about your psychology, about what is driving your behavior. And it's kind of an interesting thing sometimes to wake up and recognize a lot of the things you think you're doing by sort of free will are not. They're coming from impulse. They're coming from a certain unresolved energy that manifests itself in a patterned, sort of reflective way of thinking. And you might realize you've been doing this like your whole life. I'm trying to think, I had a good example. I lost my notes before making this video, and I had my wife, she was trying to like read them to me just a little bit ago. But I had a really good example that I wish I could share with you. But it was basically, I was just like sitting, going through my daily life, and I watched, I don't have the exact example, but essentially what happened was I was able to kind of watch, like notice my thinking change into like kind of a fear-based, sort of paranoid, irrational way. And I was able to sort of recognize what perpetuated it was this feeling. There was something in my daily life, I wish to God I knew what it was, and it kind of pinged me. Like in a very mild way. I would have normally not even have noticed this, honestly. But it sort of pinged me and altered my energy state. And it could be anything. We have so many associations with past traumas. It could be like a blue balloon. You know, you don't even know why, but that blue balloon reminds you of childhood, which reminds you of dad, which reminds you of this one time when he spanked you, and then all of a sudden, without your awareness, you're in this sort of wounded place, and therefore you become defensive in your current situation, and previously it was completely unconscious. But you might start to notice these things. And what I've learned is like it's really good to question your thoughts, question your thinking, and ask yourself, what energy are they coming from? And there's a really good example I can think of actually when it comes to creating content online. I always say I'm a coach for the full-time purpose where I help spiritual entrepreneurs build an online following and then sell their coaching or their healing services or their courses, whatever it is, their books as an example. And here's a very good example where someone, and this happens all the time, it happens to me sometimes, is in the flow. You find yourself feeling tapped in, connected, inspired. These amazing ideas are channeling and just pouring right out of you, out of your soul, and you make this amazing video, or you write this beautiful blog post, or you make this cool Instagram image, or you whatever. And then from that state, it feels good. But then the next day, you look at that exact same piece of work that you were so proud of and fond of and excited about, and all of a sudden, because you're in maybe more of a negative state, maybe you're at work and you're stressed out or something, or you're feeling kind of insecure for whatever reason. You look at that same exact piece of content and all of a sudden it's horrible. Oh my God, look, I can't post this. This is dreadful. It's the same thing. What changed? What changed is your perspective, and what altered your perspective is your energy state. So it's very important to, just to become aware of your energy state underneath your thought patterns. I know it sounds kind of abstract, but I bet you'll understand what I mean, especially because this full moon is suddenly making this kind of clear. And from this awareness, sometimes it does result maybe you going off in the corner and journaling or talking something out, because it's like you start tapping into these like sources of some of your current problems and predicaments, and it might require some healing or some attention, some just being with yourself. But that aside, that's a small price to pay for freedom. Most people are not free. They think they're free, but they're a prisoner of their own mind. And their own mind has been sort of brainwashed by a variety of different things, mainly their earlier traumas. And I'm not above it, neither are you. But you get to finally wake up out of that. And it might take some time to tend to and soothe your inner child here and there. But man, what a small price to pay for freedom. So be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for your thinking. It can be fun too. I remember I wish I knew what it was, but I remember the particular thing. One thing I remember about it was I found it comical, just how dysfunctional and fear-based this sort of pattern of thinking was. And it wasn't like this heavy, crazy thing. It was like, oh my God, I'm pretty freaking jacked up. But that's okay, because now I know I'm jacked up, and now I can no longer let that energy of the past and the thinking correlated with it and the momentum of the behaviors, I no longer need to allow that to control me anymore. Now I have a freedom to choose. I couldn't think of a good way to put this, so I'm going to say it like I wrote it down. Shedding your snake skin. Closing the door to the past. It's the best way I could put it. This might mean changing your life situation in some way, letting go of a job or leaving something behind in exchange for something new. But more so in this particular case, it's due to what I was saying previously, due to all this awareness about your psychology, you'll have this opportunity to shed your old snakeskin, to really close the door to the past, your past conditioning, some of your past conditioning is the best way I could put it. It's been what I've been experiencing, and maybe you can relate, is like a surfacing of a lot of old thought patterns, as I've already mentioned. A lot of fear-based, old, sort of trauma-infused thought patterns. But the difference is they don't really have the charge they once did. For example, we were driving to Sedona just yesterday from the airport, and I kept seeing pit bulls, which I used to own them. I used to have some pit bulls with their like big old silly head hanging out the window, like their tongue hanging out. And I saw like 2 or 3 of them. Same thing, car, big pit bull heads hanging out the window, like in the span of like 2 hours. And I thought, oh my God. And normally, my point of saying this, normally what that would represent is guilt. Guilt, because I had one dog got out one time and was hit by a car, and another one, which was a pit bull, all of a sudden, out of the freaking blue, attacked my little baby daughter. And we were able to save her from his like vicious attack, honestly, and it came out of absolute left field. He was such a good dog, so docile, so loving with her. They would sleep together every night. But all of a sudden, he literally tried to attack her and kill her, and I had to have him put down. And I felt horrible. I felt like I had failed him. I felt like a horrible dog owner. It's sad. It's very sad to me. So normally when I would see the pit bulls like that, it would remind me of this very, very painful sort of experiences of my past. But this time it was more like I found it kind of interesting that it was coming up because I felt no charge. And I feel like it's coming up just to show me how much I've come to terms with that stuff, at least currently. And it's the feeling I get is that this might stop coming up completely because it's just time to move on. We don't need to lug our past and everything that comes with it behind us for the rest of our soul's journey, beyond this lifetime even. So you might find, even if older things and feelings and memories maybe are coming up, it doesn't necessarily mean you have more work to do. It might just be showing you like, hey, remember all this? Remember how it used to drive you crazy? Remember how it used to produce all these heavy feelings? Look at you now. You're good. You don't need it anymore. It's time to make room for new experiences. And the new experiences, of course, are going to be awesome and better because you're more conscious. You're more free. You're more awake. You don't need, we're not as asleep. These painful, traumatic experiences usually come from a lack of awareness, a lower level of consciousness, which is now not so much the thing anymore. And how cool. So we can look to the future with hope and excitement and trust, knowing that we are changed. We have learned. That was also one of the things I was sort of going on in my head this past week or so, is realizing how much I've learned from all those challenging things that have been kind of coming up in these sort of light, vague memories, as I mentioned. And I can appreciate most of them, honestly. Wow, it's cool. It's cool. I've learned, I'm like a different person now because of that stuff. I'm wiser. I know better now and things like that. So you might, in your own way, have this opportunity to let go of the past. But I can tell you from my own experience, it's not easy. So even though that might be the situation right here, you might find yourself clinging on to the past, thinking you need to. And maybe it's out of habit. Maybe it's out of just not letting go and forgiving yourself. It's very hard to forgive yourself. Harder than it is to forgive other people, which also can be hard. I had this experience one time in Costa Rica on this beautiful medicine called San Pedro. It's a cactus medicine. And I'm not going to get into the extreme details, but what came up was this person in my life, and it became very clear just to what extent this person has wronged me, basically traumatized me. And I was like, oh my God. I kind of was aware of it before, but it was to a whole, it was so much more clear and so much more gory, I would say, the details of it. But then beyond that, what was given to me, it seemed, from the San Pedro plant spirit was an opportunity to forgive this person. And I was like, man, after seeing all this, are you kidding me? I don't know if I can do that. But I did. I was able to. I realized, at least what seemed to me, which it's going to sound kind of weird, but it seemed like if I was able to forgive this person, it would spare them of a bunch of karma they'd have to make up. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It made sense at the time. You get in these kind of interesting headspaces sometimes on psychedelics, but I felt like, okay, I know what it's like to beat myself up in future lifetimes because of something I did in the past. Believe it or not. As weird as that sounds. So I'm like, okay, I don't, no one deserves that. So I forgave them. And I felt this elation. I felt this weight lifted off my chest and shoulders, and I felt great. And then it wasn't over though. Then it was like, okay, that was really cool and all, Vic, but how about now you forgive yourself? I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at that time anyway. And I realized, wow, it's hard. I want to forgive myself sometimes. I know I should. I know logically I'm always doing my best. People say things like that. Oh, you're always doing your best. With the level of awareness you're at, this and that. That doesn't work. It doesn't matter. There's some kind of deep subconscious grip we sometimes have, at least me. But now's an opportunity where you might find out where you're holding on and really be able to see more clearly than you have been before that it just doesn't make sense to hold on anymore. It just doesn't. Unless you're the only exception out of all the human beings now and of all that have ever lived that doesn't deserve a second chance or doesn't deserve patience, doesn't deserve the opportunity to make a mistake and learn. If you're the one exception, then maybe keep holding on, but you're not, obviously. And you might see it that boldly in your own mind, like this is a tired old game and I can keep playing it if I want, but it just doesn't make any sense any longer. So if you're struggling to move on as effortlessly as I kind of shared with you earlier, just know that you might have something within yourself you're not forgiving yourself for. And if I can forgive myself, I never thought ever I'd be able to forgive myself for, one of the things, as I mentioned, is my dog was hit by a car. And one of the reasons is because there was a fence that I didn't fix sufficiently. I saw he could get out and I got him back in a couple of times. And then I fixed the fence as best I could, but it wasn't enough. And the dog got out eventually, again, and got hit by a car, a different dog. I've had a lot of dog trauma. And I was so horrible to myself as a result of that. And I never thought I deserved forgiveness. I never thought I deserved peace with that. And here I can talk about it now without bawling or without beating myself up. And it's, time, not just time heals all wounds, but transformation does. Healing, growth, spiritual growth. And if I can do it with that, I promise you, my friend, you can do it as well. Especially right now. Give it another chance. And finally, my friend, you can go your own way. I have to refrain from singing it because it's a song. I'm not going to do it. I'm learning to sing, but I'm not good yet, so I'm not going to sing for you. But you can go your own way. What do I mean? What am I blabbing about, you wonder? You didn't come to fit in. You didn't come to do what everybody else is doing. And as you go through this process, and if you relate with any of what I said, I can guess right now what's happening is that there are new parts, new awarenesses about who you really are, what you came to do, your purpose, your talent, your gifts, things that at the very least interest you and you're drawn towards, that don't fit in with the mold that you've been previously living within. Certainly not the mold that society wants you in, or your friends, your family, even yourself. But it's a time. We live in a time of rapid change. And this is part of it. Like these big macrocosmic leaps of faith into more of ourselves, out of the old familiar. And why I put that you can go your own ways, because there was this, I was just telling my friend Aaron about this yesterday, because it came on the radio and I thought it was kind of cool. And you can go your own way, you can go your own way, that song, I started to hear that a lot on the radio when I knew I needed to, or I knew I was being called from within to stop growing marijuana with I had a business partner at one point. We had a pretty big grow operation in Michigan where we had this huge warehouse that he bought, and we were maxed out with marijuana plants, and it was this huge operation. And initially it was like a dream come true. I thought, how cool. We had this badass, like crazy freaking warehouse, this safe place to grow, these monster cannabis bushes we were doing and make a lot of money doing it. But because of like the size of it, it became a job. What was once a passion, growing marijuana, became this miserable job. And I remember one time in particular hearing that song on the radio and knowing what it meant. I knew it. I knew this, like my higher self, through this freaking song telling me to go my own way, but I was afraid. I took comfort in having a business partner and other people I'm with. I felt safe there, but I was feeling called not only to do it on my own, but to do something different on my own. I didn't even know what that was at the time. So I was terrified to go my own way, but I knew I needed to. I knew the next step was telling the guys, hey, I'm done, but it was hard. I was ignoring it for quite some time. But anyway, I heard this song on the radio as I was cruising to work to this job I had now. And I remember I rolled up, and we had 5 or 10 pounds, which is a lot, to trim. And our big industrial sized trimmer was not working or broken, or somebody was using it, a friend or something, and we couldn't use it. And me and 8 other people had to trim all that by hand, which you might not have any idea what that implies. But what it implies is maybe 8-9 days of 8-9 hour days of just slaving away, trimming this. And not only that, I remember coming in and seeing the trimmer was gone and thinking, oh my God. And we were just exhausted. We've been working so hard to get this crop, plucked or whatever. And not only that, I was sitting there trimming, and then all of a sudden I saw water coming from under one of the doors. We were in one of the rooms in our building, and all this water started coming in. And the second I saw that water, I knew exactly what it meant, because it happened all the time with us, where we would have to fill these big nutrient reservoirs up with water. We'd use a hose, and it takes half hour or so with the hose on full blast. So what would always happen is we'd turn it on and we'd make a mental note to come back in time, and we'd forget. And all of a sudden, oh shit, the whole freaking thing's flooding. And what does that mean? It means an incredibly difficult mess to mop up. Gallons and gallons, maybe 50 gallons of water to mop up and squeeze you out. And anyway, I'm not trying to complain to you, but it was the song came on, the trimming situation, the water coming in, and I was at that moment When I saw that water coming out of that door, I just said, okay. I submit. I'm done. And that day, I told the guys I'm done. I said, listen, I appreciate your time, but I'm going to pursue this dream of being on YouTube. At that time, I had started making videos, not on this channel yet. And they were all supportive, but it took a lot of courage. It took a lot of courage to leave something that was somewhat stable, even though it was exhausting and totally out of alignment. But it was stable and it felt safe. But I knew in my heart I had come to a place in my own journey where it did not resonate. And I knew at that time, when that happens, there is no salvaging the situation. It's not going to work. What happened that day was just going to happen again and again and again in more and more extreme kind of cases until finally I accepted the messages I was getting. And what can stop a lot of people like you know, light worker type folks, is where you might be feeling called to go might just feel so foreign, so out of place for you. So like, I don't know how I can do it. I have no experience with it. I don't even quite know what it is, but I know this is not working. But just know that, my friend, you did not come to do what everybody else is doing. Maybe you came to do something completely new. And I can tell you this, having done that multiple times, is what that thing is reveals itself over time to you, in the perfect timing always. But in order to have that kind of magic, that support in your creations, you have to go with it. You have to let go of the past. You have to embrace the unknown. And it is scary. And it does require a lot of faith. And it will teach you a lot about yourself. But the result is you get to create something beautiful that resonates with you and probably helps other people as well. In fact, I'll leave you with this. If that is you exactly, we actually have this challenge coming up that I'll share with you because it's so relevant. It's called the Conscious Business Accelerator. It is for people like you, people who feel this calling to start a business, to start something new, to become a coach, a healer, to be of service to humanity, but you don't know how to do it. And if you're interested, this is not for all of you, but for those of you who want to know like what I do and what my friend Aaron Dowdy does, which is how we built a following, how we make a living, helping people with our purpose, which is exactly what we do. We teach you exactly how to do that. And it's a program we created that's completely free. It's a free coaching program that starts on June 3rd. And I'm going to leave a link down below if you're interested. All you have to do is apply. It's a $2,000 program. You can come in for free if you want. But again, it starts on June 3rd. So the sooner you can apply, the better. And if it's not for you, that's totally fine as well. But I figured I'd mention it because this is kind of the theme right now, actually. So with that said, you all have an amazing day. Thank you, my friends, for watching, and I'll be in touch. Peace.